Ben Marks. There he is.
That picture of me is what happens when you don't respond to Evie's emails quickly enough, and they just grab something off of the web. It's an interesting story behind that, though. I was actually wearing the same shirt as a couple years ago. I was wearing that same shirt just this morning. I changed into a different shirt. I mean, I want to be clear that I'm not here to promote any brands or anything. Any one true solution that's probably better than anything else out there. But that was on a trip to Switzerland. We're eating some fondue, as one does in Switzerland. And it was actually, I share that story because we realized something just, I think, yesterday, the day before. 50. Who has any idea what I mean when I say 50? Carry a guess? No guesses. Wait, market share? Market share in Australia. Didn't plan that. I'll pay you later. 50 million stores. Oh my God, I'd be making so much more money if we had 50 million stores on Magento. See, that's when you throw out unqualified statistics, especially in open source, you're going to get a range of responses. No, we've actually worked on that issue count. It's way, way, way below even a million now. 50 is actually Latvia. This is the 50th country that I visited. 90% of the countries, and I'm lucky. I was born in America, which provides a certain advantage already. My family was. Well, we were not well-to-do to begin with, but then over time moved into middle class. So I had some opportunities. So I was able to visit a few countries before I started doing work with Magento. But the vast majority of countries that I visited in this world have been because of Magento. And it's because we are part of this incredible moment. Everyone in this room, we're part of this incredible moment where we have access, we have access to each other, we have access to markets, we have access to technology that quite simply hasn't been around before. And it's a really special thing. I feel it very personally because as the title says, Community Evangelist. I'm called various things depending on the audience. I like Community Evangelist because I both explain Magento to our community, I try to help grow the community, and then most importantly, I take our community's input and bring it back into the company. So I've actually just been recording all of you today. I have microphones hidden everywhere, and everything that you said, especially the 50 million bug quote, is going right back to the mothership. But I'd like to take us back, because I'd like to throw out the number 30. The web is 30 years old. 30 years ago, Tim Berners-Lee wrote specification for what would be, or what is now, the web. And I think we are all in this room, we owe a great bit of our success, probably, whether it's in the past, in the present, or in the future, to the web. So thank you, Mr. Berners-Lee, probably Dr. Berners-Lee, for creating this thing. Now, I like to keep things very light and airy. So I want to say that I'll start a little bit further back from the web. In the beginning of the web, there was a moment. Right, so we started enabling people to communicate from one place to another. When the structure that would become the internet and eventually enable the World Wide Web, once this thing came into place, well, what happened is actually revealed when you zoom in even further on this picture. One of the first things that happened. So one of the first acts after the inception of the internet was some of the kids working at this higher learning institution saying, you know, those kids over in California at this other higher learning institution, I bet they've got really good pot, because they'd heard about it. And so they set up a transaction. They actually set up a marijuana sale. So one of the first instances, one of the first uses of the internet was actually a drug deal. It just goes, you know, that's okay, no judgment. But it just goes to show that once you start connecting to people, they're going to figure out a way to start exchanging things of value. Now, over time, we've had a few more journeys. I don't have a long enough session, probably, thankfully, especially for my wife who's seen me give a lot of these, to go into, to cover all of the iterations of commerce online through the years. But I did want to share one that I experienced, and that was Viewtron. Probably no one in this room has ever seen Viewtron. Not many people actually saw it ever. But one day my dad came home from work. He was working at a bank, and they were trying to figure out if this online thing was going to go anywhere. So this is back in '83. I was 6-ish. And he went up to the TV, you know, my TV, my cartoons. He went up to the TV, and he hooked a telephone and a box up to it. And this was the experience, the online mall of the future. So this concept, this idea that we were going to be buying stuff online has been around for quite some time. We never knew that it was going to get this far. And that's really the meat of my message today. But if you look at how the web has evolved, there's plenty of great retrospectives out there. It is interesting if you are young, because depending on how you encountered this, whether you, like me, I'm 40-ish, whether you sort of watch the web happen and you remember that first moment, or the web has just been an always-on thing, you've felt the effects, and you've definitely engaged in the commerce. Now, one of the things that I always found interesting was, for years and years and years and years, and even still to this day, a lot of commerce takes the form of basically the online version of walking into a store, getting a cart, walking around aisles, categories, searching, finding what you need, putting it in a basket, going to a cashier, and checking out. You've seen examples today of technologies that are changing this. You've seen examples today, seen and heard examples today of changing customer expectations. And that is a good thing, because this cart model doesn't make any sense anymore. We are constantly being bombarded by inputs. All these things that happen to us, because what's happened is, since the web came along and we started engaging and kind of finding our way, well, now we're an always-on consumer base. So whatever your role is here, whether you're a developer, agency, merchant, we're all consumers. And you know what's happened ever since the first smartphone came out. You've become always on. You heard the example a couple talks ago about, like, wow, you remember like 20 years ago we used to like wake up, stretch, roll over, give the wife or the husband, the partner, peck on the cheek. And now we wake up and we kiss everyone in our lives through Facebook or whatever social media. So the interesting thing about that is, of course, merchants have all piled onto this. How do I get in front of them? How do I get their attention? Think about how it used to be back in the day. If you were an advertiser, you wanted to get in someone's attention, put an ad on during evening television programming. Think of the 1950s family in black and white sitting there, and they get an ad for Colgate or some cereal or something, and then sales go through the roof. They know what happened. But now retailers, brands really have to work hard to fight for all of this attention from what is actually a 24/7 consumer. It's an interesting paradox. If you look at sort of consumer availability as inventory, we're like overstocked. Unfortunately, consumers are constantly depleting that inventory of attention, constantly depleting it. Because they're here, they're there. I've got to check Twitter, I've got to check Insta, I've got to check Facebook. I hear there's something called Slapchat? No, Snapchat. Snapchat. What does the kid use? I don't use Snapchat. I don't get it. My wife does, though. It's good. It's helpful. It helps us keep in touch with the 25-year-old and his three-legged dog. But that's the really where we are. You've heard this. You've heard various like iterations of this message today. You know, the fundamental challenge is people are constantly connected. They are horribly distracted, and we, in this general business, we are trying our best to not only get into their head, but we're also trying our best to understand what happens when we do. And I can prove it to you. See, you have to have charts and graphics and stuff in presentations, or they don't let you come back to speak at future presentations. It's science. I have a pie chart that proves it. If you look up here, you see this is the marketing technology landscape. These are all various forms of marketing companies. Oh, there's a nice, look at that, a Magento logo. It's a true story. It used to be Magenta. Till T-Mobile sued us, because they literally have a trademark on that color. Bastards. This is 2011, right? There's like 115 or something up here. This was the landscape of marketing technology. As we go through the years, we can see there's been a considerable shift. 2012, don't have 2014. Here's 2013. Here's 2014. 2015. You can tell when 16:9 became popularized. Thankfully, we're running out of room. And here we go, 2017. It's literally, if you just went out and ate a bunch of cupcakes with marketing logos on them and then proceeded to vomit them up, this is what you get. I don't know if you'd color coordinate it or what. And I seem to be missing my summary slide there. Oh, well. So basically, this here represents like 5,000 different MarTech pursuits. Why? And you'll notice Adobe is up there as well. Hey Adobe, thanks for the paychecks. Why? Because the consumers are so incredibly distracted. And we really need, but we want to make the engagements meaningful. There was the gentleman speaking before me. I think he had some good stuff to say. I'm not familiar with Google. I hope he has good success with that. But you know, the challenge, of course, is you can't shout at the customers. You have to make every moment personal and every experience shoppable. You can quote me on that. I didn't write it. Our CEO wrote it. Please quote me on that and make sure you tag him in the tweet. But that's where we are today. We've got to connect with consumers and show them, demonstrate to them that we respect their time, we respect their attention, and we're not shouting at them. We care about what's going on in their lives, and we're not just looking at them just as a revenue stream. Even though they need to feel loved, because all of this technology that they've wrapped themselves in, is just convinced them that they're the center of their own universe. Now, I think a lot of us might look at the spate of media that we consume and feel like maybe we don't have full control, but we're really insulated from a lot of experiences in getting deep, getting down into those touch points and having those meaningful interactions when you're trying to acquire their attention, when they're in a funnel, however you're measuring conversions, even after the sale, or in the case of them jumping out of the sale, you've always got to touch them in the most appropriate way for whatever channel they find you. Oh, and then on top of that, as any retailer or brand in this room knows, that message, that awareness of what the interactions have been and what you said, That has to be consistent when they go from the website, they encounter me on Facebook, whatever. It's a really, really big challenge. I want to say that, if I may, and I may because, well, I'm the one on stage, you see things like this. This is our innovation lab at Magento. It's just a way that we actually discover and promote things that our community is doing, stuff that they're doing. And these are not products. We have an entire technology partner program for that. This is just the really cool stuff that they're building. Back when chatbots were popular, there's an open source chatbot platform. I was at a hackathon in Munich. A couple of guys, they went into a room 24 hours later, and after about, I think, 10 liters of Red Bull, they came out with a working chatbot integration into the Magento backend, and it was making intelligent product recommendations. Like, that's the really cool stuff. That's why I think you need to be on a platform that allows that. You need to be on an innovative platform that facilitates this. One of the challenges that the SaaS vendors have, and I'm not casting aspersions at SaaS players. SaaS is a great solution when it fits, but you're beholden to their product roadmap, right? You don't always have this huge community to help you extend core features and then also extend into features that are relevant for your region, your market, whatever. You can see examples of this kind of innovation lab. You can see this over with some of Magento's competitors. A lot of different shop systems do this because this is quite simply owning the reality that a community around a platform is basically an extension of the product team and one that understands you, your customers, your region. Here's some more slides about MarTech. I'm evidently really bad at PowerPoint. Where are we now? I saw this the other day. I thought this was pretty good. If this were at all legible here, you would actually get the joke. So this was saying, like, boy, I really wish they knew, this is like 2011, I really, really wish they knew my preferences and what I liked. And then over here, updated for today, is like, wow, I really wish I could be more anonymous on the internet. And I know we've all had that experience, right? You've gone, you've looked at something, then you go into Facebook and there's an ad for that thing forever. And I think the classic joke is like, or maybe it's retargeting, like, wow, I bought a toilet seat on Amazon, and now Amazon seems to think that I am an avid collector of toilet seats, because now every channel I go in, it's like, wow, put your butt here. Or I think now I'm getting all sorts of bidet pictures because I don't know why. But that is an example of the kind of interactions where you really you're actually spending money to piss your users off. You're spending money to deconvert. Never a good way to be. So the experience that we have now, the reality that we work on at Adobe, at Magento, and that all the other platforms are trying to do, is they're trying to put more awareness of the customer journey in your hands. They want you to be able to meet the customer wherever he or she is. And we have all sorts of technology solutions that are coming into play, right? So if you happen to head to the Innovations Lab, there's some really neat AR measuring apps to help try on, like, do fitment for clothes. There are all sorts of experiences. Magento, years and years ago, had a great experience with a fashion retailer, a brand in New York City. Actually went into the office. Tracy, you remember, we went in together, actually, and you could walk in the store, and, well, the personal touch, they handed you a glass of champagne right away. I mean, that's a good way to get me to convert to anything right off the bat. But the nice thing was you could take clothes off the rack, go into the fitting room. Now, I did this. It was a little odd because I'm a guy, and it was a women's clothing store, but I really wanted to check out the experience because it was based on Magento. The mirror in the fitting room knew what I had in the fitting room because of RFID that was in there on the stuff, and it was really neat. If I was like, yep, that didn't fit, I simulated this whole trying on thing. They just didn't have a dress in my size. And I hit the button, tenant shows up with the next size available. That size is out. Guess what? The shop system knows, well, we're out of stock here. Store across town has it. Would you like to pick that up here, or we can ship it to your house? Like, these kind of customer journeys. This is where and how and when our customers are supposed to experience us. So that's a quick example. I have many more that I will talk about ad nauseum. If you want to talk Magento, I'm your person. We can talk later, preferably during a social hour, so that we can have a nice, meaningful, deep conversation. But I want to take that setting, take this idea that we are engaging customers meaningfully, but knowing that their expectations are going to continue to change. This is revenge, by the way, for all that A/B testing that was in vogue. I mean, if you've been around this business long enough, you remember Urchin.js. The developers in the room, some of you may remember this. This is what eventually became Google Analytics, right? That A/B testing thing that we thought gave us so much power over the customer, yeah, well, guess what? We started testing and testing, finding out what converts. Guess what? Then the customers got used to how that worked, that checkout flow, that style of merchandising, that form of A/B testing. So that became their new normal. We have this like spiraling, like tightening feedback loop of adjusting our users' behaviors. And then on top of that, they have all of this social media attention coming in. This is, again, the backdrop that we're fighting. It's the same wave that we've been riding since we set this whole thing into motion. We can't get off this wave. We just simply have to ride it and know where to point the board. It's a nice surfing metaphor because it's like 4 degrees outside. And I live by the beach. So with that in mind, you have to understand that sort of figuring out where our customers are now, how to convert them now, how to matter to them now, that's like great. That is always an endeavor. It's never an arrived at destination. That is why, Google, I have heard of Google before. I have. Because Google started working on this cool thing called PWA, or as I've heard it pronounced here, PVA. I actually like that a lot better. W has always been a really tricky letter for me. PWA, Progressive Web Apps. Who is familiar with Progressive Web Apps? Okay. This guy here, you should start a company. You're very enthusiastic about this stuff. PWA is not hype. PWA is happening. And it's happening in large part, actually, because Google is such a strong vendor behind it. But they're behind it for a multitude of reasons, and their work here is making the web better. PWA simply gives you an app-like experience if you want it, when it makes sense, via the web. Now, really interesting things are happening in the PWA space. I mean, this really is kind of a gold rush technology right now, because just recently Google announced that they're making PWA, so basically website apps, available in the Play Store. And they have been successfully twisting Apple's arm more and more on this issue. So Apple's basically having to add tech in their environments to accommodate PWA, because that's what the users are demanding. It's very rare when you get leverage over Apple. So what PWA allows you to do is it allows you to very nimbly, efficiently deliver content to your consumers in this moment, and then they can have an experience regardless of their connection. It may not matter so much here. And you might think it might not matter in any first world country. And I've traveled around, I've actually, some of the early innovators in PWA were in India. And then I've traveled around India, and believe me, like when you're jumping from cell to cell, that cellular experience is very rigid, right? So you all know what that's like, right? You're sitting there interacting with a website, and then all of a sudden you get basically page not found. And whatever you were doing is, that whole flow is lost, is broken. PWA allows you to continue that interaction while offline. This is an interesting vector that Google has taken for this technology, right? Because the specifications mean that you're going to have a really performant website So performance is really more standard now than it ever has been, or more of a requirement. But also, the ability to push messages that matter to your consumers, that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities, both for them to opt in to those communications, and then for them to to continue that brand experience after the fact. So think about a PWA workflow, where I go to a website, and if I complete my thought, let's say I'm in the very, very third world city of New York. I always forget when I'm in New York. I'm on my phone. I'm enjoying the best the web has to offer. I go down into the subway, offline. If I have a site that I interact with, whether it's maybe it's a news site, maybe it's something else, if I have a site that I interact with, then if it's PWA experience, I can continue that interaction. And then maybe I want to buy something. I can buy offline because Google's implementing an RFC to do payments through the browser. Your browser is becoming your own personalization engine. WeChat figured this out years ago, and they have been wildly successful with it. So I take that experience, and I go. Maybe when I reconnect, purchase is completed, and then I get this. I can get my updates in app. Right now, the standard experience is you get transactional emails, you get transactional information in your email. That doesn't work in a lot of markets. If you want to connect with Japan, China, you're not going to ask them for an email. You're going to ask them for WeChat personification. You're asking them maybe for a phone number. That's the reality. And that means that they can continue to have this very casual experience that is the complete opposite. I know you've been to websites recently where you show up and the first thing it does, this website wants to show you notifications. Refer to Rudy's example from his talk about just yelling at a user straight away. It doesn't work. You've got to connect with them meaningfully. PWA is going to enable this. And the nice thing is that this PWA is a separate front end from the back end. This allows you to continually adapt to changing user expectations. Now, I have to share a little bit about the technology as far as Magento goes behind this, because we were actually released a studio, an entire environment for authoring this stuff. We're building this in collaboration with our community as we do all things. Little fact, another use of the word 50, 50% of the new lines of code in our latest release were written by our community. And that number will continue to grow. The community will continue to build things in the way that matters. You can see our PWA demo at this URL. I'll get out of the way. But the important thing for developers is that PWA, because we're separating front end from back end, we're making front end development, or development in general, I think, much more enjoyable. It's an experience where, as a developer, I can sit there and I can look at the output in a browser, and I can very quickly find my way back to the relevant spot in the file system that generates that output. What this means for developers is probably obvious to developers. What this means for merchants, brands, the implementation costs go down. Oh wait, I didn't mean to say that, sorry. And that's a really good thing. This is getting us back to putting control even more in the hands of the developers, in the hands of the brands, to basically control the experiences that they know that they need to have. I'd also like to brag, if I may. Some of you are familiar with the company called Scandiweb. If not, I encourage you to open your eyes. This is their conference. They've done a magnificent job. Are you recording me? You are. So I've actually visited with the team yesterday. They have built an amazing actual implementation of a PWA experience themselves, and you can see it online. The technology behind it actually looks really, really impressive as well. And the nice thing is they've also just open sourced it. Open source, I'm a huge champion of it. Open source is the heart and soul of Magento. Whether you're on you take our free version and build a $100 million store with it, or you're working with our commercial version. Open source is the way forward because, again, it puts the power in the hands of developers to bring the things that you need to life. And with that, I will throw up a picture from one of our hackathons. So some people get together at our big conference, and this also happens dozens of times a year. They just get together and they share experience, they build cool stuff. This, again, open source is the heart and soul of Magento. If you want to get involved with our implementation, our product, or if you want to find out where community events are happening in the world of Magento, we've just created a trade association run by the community, magentoassociation.org. You can also find us and get involved with our product. That includes prioritizing the backlog. That includes even informing future architecture. All of this stuff happens online in public view and in collaboration with you. And it's all about making sure that we can continue having the relationships that matter with our customers. Because at the end, we know what our customers need. We just have to make sure that we're communicating with them effectively. I am out of time, so I'm going to go. But again, thank you all. You've been a lovely 50th country, and I look forward to talking about Magento until you're all orange in the face later outside, and then maybe over in a nice, cool building where we'll be hanging out tonight. Thank you all very, very much.